What can I say, folks? It's truly been a very successful past 6 months. The hair gains have been absolutely astronomical, and I'm well and truly very satisfied with the results so far. Only kidding! This is how my hair currently looks right now. Kept it short because that's the way I like it. So welcome to today's video. This is the 6-month update from the initial hair transplant procedure which I had. If you haven't seen that video, I really do recommend you watch that one first before you watch this one. So just to give you a quick summary of the procedure itself, it was done over a 2-day period and there was roughly 1,700 extractions made. So these extractions were taken from the side and back of my head and placed on the top of my head, mostly around the crown region and the actual hairline itself, because at that point in time it was quite a sorry state of affairs. Now, in terms of recovery, it really wasn't that bad, and I think I probably had it quite good compared to a lot of people. Now, was this due to the fact that the surgery did a really good job, or that I really took care of myself afterwards? Probably a combination of both. But generally speaking, there was nothing really negative that I experienced. There was no throbbing, no headaches or anything like that. The most frustrating thing was that I just had to kind of stay indoors and not exercise. I had to take 10 days off from the gym. Very frustrating because I do like to train, but the idea behind that was to reduce the risk of infection from sweating, so I basically couldn't sweat. But apart from that, it was all fine. All I had to do was pretty much water my head every 30 minutes when I was awake with the salt solution which they provided me with, so I had to do that for 7 days. So that was really quite a pain in the ass. After about 5 days I did experience quite a bit of itching, and that was just the scabbing which was occurring, and then I think after 7-8 days all the scabs from the side and top eventually fell out. And then following that I did start wearing caps, and even 3 weeks after that I went to Dubai, so I was exposing my scalp to a bit of sun, which may not have been the best idea, but I wasn't a complete idiot, so I stayed out of the sun whilst I could, and I wore a cap to protect myself from burning it. So this is an update roughly about 2 months, just over 2 months since I had the procedure done. The procedure was on the 27th, 28th of March, and it is now, on this day, the 10th of June. So I'm just gonna show you a little bit of an update of how everything is progressing. The side, obviously you can't really see much of the side. The crown, I feel as though could do with a little bit more work. This was really the area which I wanted sort of fixed the most, because that is where I had like no hair. But it is just one of those things where I have to be patient with it. I'm pretty sure after the 3-week mark, there was quite a lot of hair that fell out, particularly around the crown region again. You know, they said this would happen, it's completely normal, and that your follicle will go into a hibernation period for a couple of months until it sort of regrows again, but it's completely dependent upon the individual as to how many of those follicles and shafts actually fall out and how much sort of remain. But I noticed it in pictures and videos again. I was like, hang on a second, my crown is looking like exactly how it was before I had the procedures done. Like, I was a little bit pissed off and worried, but then obviously I sort of reassured myself. And it's just a waiting game, you know. I've got to wait another couple of months to see you know, obviously how successful the procedure has been. For me, I noticed it was like the 5-month mark where I kind of looked in the mirror and I was like, whoa, like my hair actually looks quite thick now. I can see that my hairline is filling in quite a bit, and even the crown, that was probably the last thing to fill in, which was the worrying thing for me, but I now am really quite happy with the results. And like Dr. Reddy said, you know, the majority of the results which really start to shine and come through occur after the 6-month mark, so 8-9 months. And maybe, you know, realistically, after 12 months, that's when you can see the real, true result of how successful the hair transplant was.
You have slightly wavy hair, so I was mindful that the curve kisses your skin, it doesn't go the other way around.
Yeah.
So when I look at the front hairline, it looks perfectly natural, the hair's falling. Imagine if a curly hair sticks away.
Yeah, well that's what I guess a surgeon who isn't that clued up, if they're not putting it in at the right angle, then it would be coming out all crazy directions.
That's the key thing. You see, the curl is key, and of course how you spread the use of your big and smaller grafts. Because the first time, as I said, most of your grafts had so many hair. It was easy for us to give you the result with less grafts. But going forward, imagine if you had 1 or 2 previous surgeries, you would have needed twice the number of grafts to get the same number of hair.
Now, in terms of aiding the whole process of recovery and helping my hair grow, obviously I've tried to keep as healthy as possible, so I do exercise on a regular basis. I try and keep my nutrition on point, so eating lots of unprocessed foods, trying to keep alcohol intake to a minimum, getting lots of sleep and trying not to, be stressed out on a day-to-day basis. Now, when it comes to taking finasteride, I've been taking that for the past 7 months on a daily basis. And there's been the odd day here and there where I've forgotten to take it, but apart from that, it's been pretty consistent. And have there been any side effects? Not really, at least nowhere near the extent to what I had expected, especially when I did all the research beforehand and I'd read about people's horror stories with it. I think the biggest issue people have or are scared about is the effect that it would have on your sex drive and your sex life. And to be honest, it hasn't really affected mine at all. I mean, the only time it really was an issue was when I first started taking it, because immediately I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that it was going to affect my ability to get an erection or maintain an erection. And because you're constantly thinking about the negative side effects it's going to have, you just screw yourself over. And the more you think about it, the more likely it's going to happen.
The way I look at finasteride is, a lot of medications we take, our minds are already prepped for the side effects.
Yeah.
So if you go in expecting to get side effects, you're bound to get side effects. Anyway.
I would say that maybe my sex drive and my urge to have sex has gone down a little bit, but my sex drive was pretty high to begin with, so it's not really had a noticeable effect. Like, I'm not worried. I think the two things which do stand out to me is that I don't dream about sex as much, and I don't wake up with a hard-on as frequently as I used to. Okay, but when it comes to actually being with a woman and wanting to have sex with her and being able to maintain an erection, it's been okay. So I think I'm going to do a more in-depth video on finasteride maybe after 10 to 12 months of taking it. Now, one of the things which I've been doing to help try and promote growth is I've been using a product called Midoxanol Max, and what you do is you take 1 milliliters worth in this little pipette and you apply it to the region of your scalp which you want to help grow. Now, I don't put it on my whole head because, first of all, I'm happy with the front. It's quite thick, relatively speaking, and the biggest downside is it makes your hair sticky, right? And that's not something you want. You don't want a full sticky head of hair, particularly if you've got some sexy girl who's going to be rubbing on your head later on at night. You know what I mean? So what I've been doing as often as I can, and by often as I can, you're supposed to do this once a day, is I will apply it on the back of my head, the crown, because the crown is the region which I was worried about, and that's what I want to be the thickest. So once a day, as often as I can, I would use this derma roller, which is supposed to get more of the blood supplied to that region. I gently just rub this across the back of my head, or the crown region. I would do that for about 20 seconds or so. So weird, it feels like my head is a field and I'm harvesting my field for another successful year of crop growth. And then I would get the formula in that pipette and I would just evenly apply it to that crown region. And then after that, I would just very gently massage it into the scalp for 45 to 60 seconds. Now, how much of an effect this has had on promoting hair growth in my crown region, it's really hard to say, because I might have had that growth occur if I hadn't taken it all, due to finasteride and the fact that Dr. Reddy put a large number of follicles there. But I would definitely, or at least it would make sense, that if you combine taking this along with finasteride, it's gonna strengthen or increase your chances of having a thicker head of hair. So in terms of the current condition of my hair, I would say that I am really quite happy with it. Especially over the past month, the thickness really came along. And if it is gonna continue to get thicker, then happy days. I'm looking forward to getting my bush on. In terms of any scarring at the side and the back, there hasn't been any. And I would say this is due to Dr. Reddy's skilled hands and extractions. And I think he knew that I would be having this haircut in the future. I have a skin fade, so there's like literally no hair here. And as you can see, there's no scarring, which I'm really quite happy about, because that was something which I was worried about. In terms of like styling it, one thing that I've noticed is if I have it shorter than this, then you can see that there is like sort of different types of hair on the top of my head. So, if you really want to have a shortcut or a buzz cut, maybe a transplant might not be the best thing, because you can see like the hairs here, these are hairs from the side and back of my head, so it's not going to look like normal hair would typically look like. And sometimes when I have had a short haircut, or the sun's been like shining down on my head, or it's been really bright, you can kind of notice that something's not quite right. So some people may notice that you have had a transplant, particularly when I've been to some of the barbers overseas, you know, when they're cutting my hair, giving me a trim, they'll sort of inspect it and they'll be like, hair transplant? Yeah, hair transplant? And I'm like, yeah, hair transplant. They're like, oh, very good, very good. So, you know, some people may notice, but to the average person, I don't think many people would be able to tell. And I would say the longer you have it, the less noticeable it is. In terms of having a future operation, it's something which I could possibly do. And honestly, a few months ago, I was thinking, damn, I'm gonna have to go back in December to get another one done because my crown is still looking proper faded. But over the past month, like I said, it filled in. And if it's gonna continue to fill in, then I'm gonna be good for the next few years, hopefully, assuming that, you know, there's no more rapid hair loss. I mean, that's one of the things I'm scared about is if I come off finasteride is that my hair's gonna start falling out again. So that's one reason why I wanna keep staying on it. But hopefully, in the future, there will be something else which is gonna come out which isn't gonna have those side effects or potential side effects which taking oral finasteride can have.
I doubt you need to be on finasteride forever. I'm extremely optimistic that there are about 3 medications in the pipeline which might obviate the need for oral finasteride every day. There's talk of a topical finasteride which affects only the scalp, so no systemic side effects. When you take oral, you might get some systemic side effects. And there are 2 potential nutritional supplements which are very exciting. One's called Trapa japonica, very early days but very exciting, and another one's Japanese hedgehog mushrooms.
If I was being picky and I did notice like light spots in my head or my crown, then I would probably opt for the microscalp pigmentation. I've had some friends of mine who've done it and they've had a hair transplant as well, and the combination of both gives you the most realistic head of hair you can possibly get, because you actually have the hair follicles, but then the pigmentation gives you that darker look, so your hair looks dark and thick and actually feels like hair. So I think a combination of both would be an absolute winner to go for, but right now I'm happy and I'm not really planning on doing anything, at least for the next year or so.
You might change your mind, you might get hair addiction, you might say let's do lower hairline,
yeah.
intensity. So again, it's one of those things, if you had a bad experience the first time, you'll never consider hair transplant again. What we see is the procedure as such, it's relatively pain-free, the recovery is nice and easy. So clients 2 or 3 years down the line, you know what, I've got a bit of money now, what do I spend on? Let's go for more density or a lower hairline. It's always best to preserve maximum numbers. And I think my philosophy is have at least a 30 to 40 year strategy. So no matter what, for the next 30-40 years, we have a plan for you.
The biggest downside is obviously the price. It is expensive, particularly if you get it done in the UK. If you're looking at a qualified surgeon who's going to do it, you know, it's probably going to be over £10,000. And that's not cheap. So you have to ask yourself, is it really going to be worth it? You could go over to Turkey and get it done, or other places which it can be done for like a third of the price, but you just have to be quite careful. And I would say the biggest downside from going abroad is having to get the flight back. You know, after I'd had 2 days with the procedure done, the last thing I would have wanted to do was to go to the airport, get a flight back. You know, all I wanted to do was just rest. And then you have that additional risk of getting your scalp infected with all the bugs which are flying about on the plane and so on, or even just being in a different country. So, you know, there's pros and cons of going abroad, but just do your research. Look into the surgery and the surgeon that's going to be doing it, and take a look at their testimonials, because this is something you don't want to mess up. And there are risks associated with it, so make sure you're doing it with the right person. So if you have any further questions, guys, leave a comment below. I will probably do another update after 12 months or so, and particularly with the finasteride, I really want to do a full in-depth video about that and just my experience and how to deal with the potential side effects, or how to just psych yourself out of it, because I do believe that a lot of the side effects which do occur are more of a mental thing than actually a physical thing. So thanks again. Shout out to the private clinic on Harley Street, and big up Dr. Reddy. Thank you very much for blessing me with my hairline once again. I'll see you guys in the next video.